Hi, I'm Rebecca. I'm the Psych-Coach, and today I'm going to be talking to you about the topic of toxic parents and how to manage them. I'll be giving you 5 tips to help you cope with a toxic parent where you may be on the receiving end of manipulative behaviour, of stonewalling and aggression. And hopefully if you can put these things into practice, you will find that managing your toxic parent will be that slight bit easier. So listen up. Tip number 1, be honest about their behaviour. Saying things like, I don't want to be around you when you behave like that, or I find it really difficult to hear you telling me stories like that, and when I listen, I just want to leave. Being honest will feel really challenging because if you've got a toxic parent, it's highly likely you're used to walking on eggshells and not wanting to rock the boat with them. But starting to have an open dialogue where you make them aware of the impact they're having on you may not change their behaviour immediately, but it may start to slightly change their behaviour in the long run. And what you're doing by saying, I don't like that behaviour and I don't want to be around you when you behave like that, is you're giving yourself an opportunity to leave a situation if you're finding it too triggering, and you're also giving your parent an opportunity, whether they take it or not, to amend their behaviour. Tip number 2 is following through on consequences. If you've said to your parent, if you speak to me like that, I don't want to be around it and I will leave, you need to follow up with that. If you're having a really difficult phone call with your parent and maybe they're being really angry or abusive to you and you don't want to stay on the phone any longer, you need to say, if you carry on talking to me like this, I'm afraid I'll have to end the phone call. And you need to make sure you follow up with those consequences, because rather like any consequences in life and any boundaries that we put in place, we need to follow through with the consequences when people don't adhere to that. So follow through on what you're saying. And the key with this is to not do it in a really aggressive way, to not do it in a really het up way, even if you're feeling very adrenalized, but it's to be very calm and to simply say, I don't want to be spoken to like that and I will hang up. And then subsequently hanging up, which may feel really, really difficult for you because of course you're not going to be used to that feeling. But this is going to take some practicing, and the more you do it, the more empowered you're going to feel to be able to manage what is probably a toxic situation that's been playing out for a really long time. Tip number 3 is identify manipulative behaviour and respond to it differently. Chances are, if you've got a toxic parent, you have probably tried to win them over if they've been stonewalling you. If they've been sulking, which is what stonewalling is, withholding their conversation, withholding their affection, withholding their attention from you, but making it very obvious they're angry but not telling you why, it's highly likely that you have got into a habit, on occasions at the very least, of trying to win them round, trying to be nice to them, trying to sweet talk them into sort of softening them up a little bit. And actually, that's not a healthy way to respond for you. What you need to do is identify that as a manipulative behaviour. They're trying to obviously convey something to you, but it's not your job to try and work it out. And to instead respond differently. So instead of spending lots of energy trying to win them over, perhaps it's about saying, I guess you're not in the mood for a conversation now, so we can pick this up another time. Or perhaps you don't want me to sort of be around today, so I will leave. Or sounds like you're not in the best frame of mind, we'll catch up tomorrow. Doing something like that, ending the situation, as opposed to engaging in the manipulative cycle where you try and guess what's wrong, they don't tell you, and the circle goes round and round. Save your energy. Put your energy instead into checking out of the situation. Tip number 4, which is a follow on from the previous 3 points I've made, is question the guilt that you feel. When you start responding to a parent differently to how you have done for maybe years or even decades beforehand, it's going to feel really uncomfortable. And if you feel uncomfortable, the chances are one of the emotions you will be feeling is guilt. Guilt is triggered when we feel like we've done something wrong. So what you need to do is you need to think, have I actually done anything wrong in this situation? Fine, you may have said something that your parent didn't like hearing. Fine, you may have been a little boundaried. But you need to question how bad that actually is. Don't just slip into the guilt trap, because that's a well-trodden path in your head and that's something that you will have very easily been able to do. Feel guilty, do something about it. Instead, question that guilt, work out how wrong what you've done actually is, and chances are it's probably not. And if you're feeling guilty because you've been boundaried or said no to something, then that's a sign of empowerment and a sign of you starting to manage a toxic relationship in a way that's going to be more manageable for you. And tip number 5 is remind yourself that you're not a child. It's really common when we've got long established relationships with people, no matter how much time has passed since we had a fractious relationship with them or how much of an adult you are now, that when we're in that dynamic with them, we naturally respond back to our childlike state. If you're with a parent, it's not uncommon to behave in a really juvenile, infantile way around them and to almost respond to them telling you off like you're a 5-year-old who's got nowhere to go, or like you're a naughty teenager who's about to be grounded. Remind yourself in those situations where you're perhaps not engaging in the manipulation cycle, or where you're saying, I don't want to stay here if you're going to talk to me like that you are an adult in this situation. You're no longer a child who's at the mercy of their moods, and you can indeed leave the situation if you want to. Hold on to the fact you're not a child, you're an adult, and as a result of that, you can respond to this situation very differently. It's really challenging managing a toxic parent, but it can get easier if you put into practice the things that I've mentioned. So to recap, be honest with your parent about the behaviour you find unacceptable. Follow through on consequences. If you say you're going to leave a situation or end a call, then do. Identify the manipulation and don't engage in a manipulative cycle where you try and win them round. Question the guilt that you're feeling and think about, have you actually done anything really wrong? Probably not. And remind yourself that you are not a child in that situation. You can respond differently. You can respond as the empowered adult you are today, not the young child that was at the mercy of your parents' bad moods. If you've enjoyed today's tips, hit the like button, subscribe to my channel, and I will give you plenty more psychological strategies on coping with day-to-day life.